We start off our tea break with another panel discussion. So I presume tea has energized us enough to kind of be a participative audience and also given heavy duty insights on this panel as well. For uninitiated, I mean, there was a panel which delved into the regulatory frameworks and what policymakers can do better in order to make India a global talent hotspot. Some very powerful, incisive remarks that came in from senior academicians who were present on the panel, hoping to replicate a similar, sort of a run in the second panel as well. This is a topic that's now pretty much close to everyone's heart, especially for technology observers such as yours truly, since I talk extensively to the CIOs and CISOs and other IT leaders across industries. This is something that's caught on right now, and everybody is talking about generative AI, the potential, the strengths, weaknesses, threats, the concerns that emerge from generative AI. However, today's context is all about how we're leveraging the power of generative AI in order to personalize learning and make learning a more, what do I say, a driven experience for both users as well as how policymakers and senior academicians in higher educational institutions can really leverage this in order to make India a 10 trillion dollar economy. Well, that's a great ambition. I think India is scaling and inching towards getting there. It's some years ahead, but yeah, nevertheless, this is a great context that we can take off. Without further ado, let me kind of, while I keep an eye on the time sheet there, which I constantly do, let's kind of get in Dr. Manoj Kumar into the discussion. Welcome to the panel today. So, in your view, Doctor, how would you be looking at the integration of generative AI and automation into transforming learning, or basically the educational landscape? How would you look at it, specifically from the point of view of preparing students for the ever changing job market? Industry keeps coming up with evolving, changing demands. So, generative AI is the new kid on the block. So, how do you really look at this?
Happy to be here. To answer your question, we must understand the currently what is that we are aspiring for. India, as per NEP, we want to be a Vishwa Guru, and every institution, university is now aspiring to go for internationalization. So we want to bring foreign students to India. At the same time, we conduct some outreach program for foreign students. So both are happening. So essentially, we are looking at a globalization of Indian education. So while we are doing this, it is essential that the teachers should be well equipped. They should be aware of what is happening in the industry. And we know that the job roles are changing in the industry due to advent of technology. So in this scenario, it is important that we need to kind of look at integrating generative AI into our curriculum so that we can make our curricular structures as per the requirements of the industry. So the way I look at the integration, which we have already done in our programs, currently Manipal Academy of Higher Education, we are offering several campus programs, but more so we are into online education. I am heading the online education wing. Currently we have students from 29 countries. Some of these countries are non-English speaking countries. You must understand that we are getting students from non-English speaking countries. How do we address the challenges of these students? At the same time, how do we kind of change the curriculum so that we can make our curriculum relevant? So teachers can embed the scenario-based, the curriculum. They can embed the case scenarios. We can come out with AI-based coding platform so that students can be trained effectively. And for this, the teachers have to be trained. It's not just students, the teachers have to be trained. Today, the teachers should learn prompt engineering, how to interact with generative AI. So we must train our teachers how to interact with generative AI so that they can make their curriculum industry oriented to begin with. Thank you.
Absolutely. That's a great point. I think you left us with the punchline of the opening question. The teachers have to be trained. I think students will play the catch up game faster. Yeah, because it's a digital native generation. So they need very little push. I think they just have the technologies to be presented to them and they'll take to it faster than the faculty. Great point there, Dr. Nagasampige. Let me call in Mr. Abhay Chebi here into the discussion. So, Abhay, in your opinion, taking off from what Dr. Nagasambike just mentioned, how would you really look at it? On one hand, students have to keep pace. On the other hand, faculty have to be trained as well. What's been your experience? What have been your couple of specific use case experiences in this regard with vis-a-vis how we're really going to look at generative AI in the current educational space?
Great question, I must say. If I remember correctly, I think the question that you asked first was how it will help in terms of the job market, right? The gap that we see. Well, AI is not something new. It's been there, it's existing. But the generative AI, the generative component, I think has given us a lot of capabilities now. To be very direct and
Scale,
get
for
into the,
instance.
yes,
Hmm.
yes. Now, if you truly look at a transformational journey of a student in an academic environment, the 3 years, the 5 years, the 2 years that he or she spends, during this process, they are fed with a lot of information. This information either comes inside their classroom or outside the classroom in terms of experiential learning. But what truly matters in this transformational journey, so that he takes that terminal degree and then flies off and becomes the most wanted asset with respect to companies to get him, is the kind of knowledge that he's been able to sort of get and also apply. When you really look at the taxonomy, companies will pay heavy dollars or rupees to anybody who is job ready from day one. That essentially means he jumps into the market, has the right skill set, most importantly, has the right attitude, and does the work done, gets the work done in an environment that could be totally foreign to him. What it essentially means is imparting of this knowledge skill is very important in an academic environment, in an academic institute. We all do that. Nobody is here who's not doing it, but the effectiveness of that is often a question. Well, if you have great products coming in, like the Ivy Leagues of India, if I may say, you have great products going out. But where do the rest go? If I have to truly classify that, generative AI in this space plays a huge role. It addresses something that was unaddressed. I'll give you an instance. We, in fact, I think I happened to mention this to Kapil in a call. We, through the lecture capturing systems that are present, are embedding that with technologies and a model that I am also part of in development, wherein regression is conducted on data sets that are non-structured. Facial recognition, voice recognition, because no matter how good a student is academically, but if he's stressed out, if he's having mental issues, it's often undetected. That's one. Number two, when it comes to applications, students know theory, but they may not know how to apply. And there are several kinds of learners: somebody visual, auditory, someone will probably socially learn, someone will learn in isolation. But who learns in what way? Will a teacher truly be able to know that unless he's somebody with a very small faculty to student ratio and then can really grow, go in depth? Quite impossible. As you mentioned, scale. Today, and there are applications available in foreign markets where you can implement and you can understand what kind of a learner a student is and give him those kind of visuals, those kind of storyboard curated for a certain topic. You can break down learning into micro learning content and truly be able to, at the end of a lecture, determine whether the student has gotten into this bracket or this bracket. Might not be to be visible to him, but to the teachers. So more on this as we go along.
Absolutely. And I think you raised a fantastic point in terms of application as well as the different kind of learners. So that directly kind of merits bringing in Kapil into the discussion. Kapil, diversity and inclusivity becomes a large part of the learning process. So different kinds of learners is one piece, and different spectrum of learners is also another piece. Given that we have so much of cultural diversity, we have also now new types of diversities that organizations are recognizing. I think education also has played a big role in kind of recognizing this and kind of empathizing with the differences and paces of learning as well. So, what kind of conversations have you been looking at, and how have you kind of driven these conversations to people you've been talking to institutions you've been talking to, and your peers also? How have you been driving these conversations? How do you integrate learning as an inclusive methodology? And how does generative AI really kind of uh, catalyze this as a process? All yours.
Thank you so much. I think very, very apt question. And, you know, firstly, I'm really honored to be here amongst all the eminent speakers. Um, before I start and respond to your question, right, I think, and I'm sure most of you know this, but learning has always been at the center and the heart of what Google does, right? And we've invested heavily as far as learning and education is concerned. Um, uh, and I think in the earlier part of the session, Weber, my colleague, also shared that we were trying to solve certain basic issues, right? Access, capability, the platform, and of course now more and more, I think what is becoming important is the privacy and the security aspects, right? Uh, so there are various ways in which we are trying to do this. But coming to the point that you talked about in terms of generative AI and inclusivity, I think there are a few things that one has to take care of and very consciously take care of. And I'm sure our partnership with various people in the education sector, at the higher education sector, policymakers, we're always talking about this, right? I think one of the things that generative AI can essentially do is remove biases, okay, and not to sound negative about it, but biases do come in any human relationships. That's where I think generative AI can really solve that issue of biases. Just an example, today we have chatbots, we have multilingual voice bots, and I think one of the speakers just mentioned, right? Um, 29 different countries, non-speaking English languages. I think generative AI can help solve that. Translation models are available. Google pioneers some of the largest translation models as far as multilingual translation is concerned. And we're doing this on the Google Cloud platform, right? Uh, Other aspects, and I think what Mr. Abe also talked about, is effective education, right? Um, in terms of employability, everybody is working towards employability, but are we giving the right skill? Yes, diversity is an important factor, and you're right. Today, organizations like us are looking at people coming from diverse backgrounds, right? So to that effect, I think what we are trying to do is we are trying to make those interventions early, giving students the platform to be able to hone the skills which makes them industry ready. Uh, for example, cloud training programs, right? Hackathons, career fairs is something that we are running today so that the students are better equipped with what is required out of them. We are spending time with faculty, we are spending time with teachers, training them on some of the newer technologies like generative AI, so that not only is it inclusive, and I think one of the points that was mentioned is getting the skill givers trained onto the right technology is the most important part. If we've done that, I think they are the ones who are going to impart education further and those learnings further. Lastly, and I think more importantly, um, I just wanted to say that we are also, along with that, trying to build an ecosystem of players and partners, technology companies, edtechs, ISV players, where we give them what we call today as one of the largest, and I think Weber also talked about it, but the large language models on which these solutions are going to be built, right? Um, One of the examples that I want to talk about particularly is our partnership in research and higher education with IIT Mumbai. We've actually, signed up or got into an MOU with them for setting up an AI chair where we are specifically working with the faculty at IIT Mumbai to ensure that we do research and build uh, generative AI solutions and capabilities as a co-build for industry at large. So I think in if I were to just sum it up, what is important is to solve some of these issues. We are playing or we are trying to play a small part. Of course, nothing can be done alone. It is all in partnership. And generative AI today has become core to everything that we are doing. I think you saw that in terms of some of the things that we have the capability on Duet AI. And these are the capabilities that we are getting back to education and getting the faculty, the educators ready, the students ready, and of course, working with the decision makers.
Sure. I think at this point of time, I think your conversations are also pretty diverse with the entry of generative AI, Duet AI, the Path LLM. The foundation model, which you've based the cloud part of it as well. GCP has also taken to. So there's just so much that you have at this point of time as Google, and of course, Bard is there for the end user in the B2C. Yeah. Y- Yes. 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 So I mean, there's just so much happening, but more, we will, like, I'm sure there'll be a lot of offline conversations, which I'm sure you're going to have with our audiences here. So great point, couple. Thanks so much. I'll bring Mr. Sanjay Padode into the conversation. Welcome, Sanjay. So, very quickly, to understand from you, how would educational institutions such as yours look at generative AI as something that can make the learning process more relevant and efficient? How would you be really viewing it? Any specific outlook that you have at this point?
Sure. Thank you very much for having me here. I think I would just like to step back and set the context of what Gen AI and LLMs are all about so that we are on the same page. I think AI, like Abhay said, it's been there in the system right from 1960s. It's just come to become popular now. And the large language model, which is the LLM model, is a model that has been created using AI, wherein you're able to synthesize a lot of the information that is already available on the net. And there are a lot of organizations that are training these LLM models like ChatGPT, and you have OpenAI doing that, which has been in the news all along. And using that training, so as far as the training is concerned, currently, as we speak, the OpenAI model is trained up till 2022 data. It's got about 175 billion parameters which are getting tuned as they learn by the various prompts that are being put into the system. So essentially, it's a model that synthesizes content to create contextual answers. So it's about predictive. Now, when I prompt the engine, I'm going to get an answer from the engine based on the context that my prompt is creating. And that's the whole idea about prompt engineering. To speak about teacher training, I think this model, for any user to use this model, doesn't require any training. In fact, the biggest threat to education today is a lot of students are using this to answer questions. And there is a lot of information already in the space, and there's so much of it that no single faculty in any education institution can compete that. So the answers coming out from Gen AI are going to be very, very, very relevant and very, very accurate. And now, how do you actually get the student to learn when on his fingertips he's got this access available is the bigger challenge that we should be addressing. I think the way to counter that is to use generative AI. So, for example, before coming to this forum, all the questions that were going to be put on the panel, I actually put it to ChatGPT. All right. And I got a lot of answers from it, which are quite relevant and accurate. And most of the answers, when I said that, okay, how would you put inclusive and diversity and deal with it? The question that was asked earlier with Gen AI, the answer came out that inclusivity and diversity and Gen AI are two mutually exclusive things. So to do
Wow.
inclusivity and diversity, we have to adopt the normal pedagogical methods that we use currently, which is basically more human, get cross-functional teams to work on projects, to do immersions. It just came through a standard and then said eventually that you can use Gen AI to augment that experience. So in a way, I think today, I mean, we are in the early years of Gen AI, and a lot of the Gen AI that is generating answers maybe will get fine-tuned going forward and will become much better. But currently, as we speak, Gen AI itself says that AI can contribute in a very, very limited way to education. However, coming back, we have used Gen AI, which I would like to share with you and how it helped us. So there was a problem put to me, okay, as being part of Vijay Bhumi University, to devise a curriculum in the area of computer science, software engineering, and artificial intelligence. And we were all debating with the faculty, and everybody had fantastic views. But most of the views were coming from legacy curriculum frameworks that exist in the country. And this was like distorting my mind quite a bit. And 2 days I spent scratching my mind, and that was the first time I opened Chat GPT. I said, let me ask Chat GPT. And when I started asking questions, believe me, the answers that I got were phenomenal. I could ask a question to Chat GPT, set the learning goal for a bachelor's of engineering program in software engineering, and it gave me a super answer. Then I said, set the goal for a mission, give me the learning outcomes for a computer science. It gave me a different answer. And the nuances in each one of these answers could help us differentiate learning pathways and create learning pathways for students to actually choose and build that. So, like, they can have a specialization in the area of cybersecurity and Gen AI or AI. They can have a specialization in maybe programming augmented by Gen AI. So we all know that Gen AI can throw out code. But how do you prompt the engine to actually throw out the right code? And then how do you get the right code to go into the system by itself becomes a lot of input that faculty can provide into. So it's something that can augment learning. I don't see this as a substitution, but a lot of Gen AI can be used. Now, another example that I can give, which I would love to try out, which I've been coaxing my faculty in the management school to try out, is when they're doing the case study method, have one student prompt Gen AI with all the answers that students are giving, and then eventually at the end of the case study, get ChatGPT to summarize it. Because what that's going to bring into class is not only what was spoken by the peers, but it's going to get opinion from all over the world, which will augment the learning of the faculty and the student put together. So I think there are many use cases that all of us, if we use our imagination and innovation, can apply to Gen AI and create curriculums, create pedagogies, create a lot of things. It's opened up to our imagination, and I think we should all experiment and do it.
Absolutely. No, yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point. Please mark this gentleman. He's sitting right at the center. He's the person you should be checking out. Of course, it's a brilliant panel, but I think he's seated right at the center, and there must be some energetic field there, which has made him the devil's advocate. So he's seated right at the center, and he's saying something which possibly couple feeds off a conversation, merits a conversation with him later. Right? Yeah. So great points, Sanjay. Thank you so much for that. For someone who has also been very concerned with inclusivity in learning, your response was very refreshingly honest. Thank you for that. Let me move the discussion a little further and bring in Subhajit into the discussion right now. Subhajit, having been in the SaaS space for a while and having spoken to the industry, your peers, and higher education institutions as well, how do you really look at augmenting the enrollment process, which I think most institutions are grappling with, A, and B, how do you think Gen AI kind of augments this as a sort of a technology or a concept in this day and age? Yours.
So thank you for the question. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm feeling glad being amongst all of you. I see a lot of our partner institutions already here. I was having a lot of discussions outside. So Merito, formerly known as No Paper Forms, we have always been a a customer-centric company wherein we have got feedbacks from our customers and trying to create solutions for them by using our technology. So we say that we are a company which has been co-created by our partners actually. So when you talk about generative AI and AI being implemented into enrollment process automation, so multiple things have come up nowadays. So initially we used to have the something called a chatbot, an education chatbot, which would be placed on probably on a website, or which might work on your Facebook and try to capture leads and then help the students to process further towards taking an admission or solve their queries actually. So we tried implementing generative AI into that, wherein the student will also be assisted, like in some things like somebody is at your website on a page of a BTech computer science engineering, and he's asking for a course fees of BTech computer science engineering. He's not even asked whether you are applying for a computer science engineering or electrical engineering, as because the student is already on the page of computer science engineering, the student is given the answer for the course fees or the course details of computer science engineering only, without even asking which course you're looking for. Similarly, I would also like to highlight one more very important point, which we are recently doing at the company level, and it includes everybody, in fact, like starting from the CEO's office to somebody in sales or marketing or finance or tech ops, product, everybody. We are also, when we get these use cases from different organizations, different institutions, partner institutions, we try to identify what are the very important, crucial or critical use cases highlighted by the partners, and everybody in the organization, by creating teams, we are trying to solve for it, right? We are trying to come up with some models wherein we can probably solve something which is related to your application process automation. So somebody tries to fill up an application form at your university or a college, and there's a generative AI which is being implemented at the place, which helps you to solve any queries while whatever you are having while filling up the application form or while making the payment, or whether you want to know something about the university or the college while filling up the application form. In fact, the entire nurturing part has been based on that actually, trying to understand the intent of the prospect. What does the prospect want to hear? Every prospect is getting triggered by a different solution, so every prospect wants to hear a different answer. So how do you kind of identify the intent of the prospect and then nurture the prospect? So these are some of the areas where we are currently working with and trying to come up with a solution for our partner institutions.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Let me quickly bring in Mr. Pankaj Kumar Mishra into the discussion. One quick question to you would be, would generative AI, while self-paced learning and the classroom training models are kind of trying to strike a balance, how do you think classroom training? So we heard from Sanjay, we heard from Dr. Nagasampige as well, and from Abhay. We did hear different use cases. So how can classroom training kind of stay relevant in the age of generative AI? So what can be done, and what are you looking at specifically at this point of time?
Thank you very much. It's a very relevant question. Last but not least, uh, while traveling from Dehradun to this place, Bangalore, electronic city, garden city, and many good places, many individuals and intellectuals, the galaxy of the great people are here. I found one thing as a sum up, that is what in this country we are having two kinds of people. One living in the India, which will found near the airport and everywhere, and in the ITs and NITs and the cream institutions, and one living in the Bharat, right? So when you serve the rural kind of pupil, rural students still 70 plus percent plus populations are living in the villages. So I'm also belonging to the local university Saharanpur, Uttar Pradesh, which is a kind of rural belt, and I'm serving that kind of student. Second, I belong to the private institution. So every penny we are expending, we need to earn first, right? So as an institution head, as a pro vice chancellor, I need to look into that. How many students are there? Okay, 60 students. Okay, 17 students. Doesn't matter. One teacher will be sufficient, right? So my academic head, my dean academics will plan according like that. So a point is what we are living in the world of, or in the country where the diversity is there. So how one fit formula will work for everybody? It's not possible, right? In the same class, the students from the maybe Nigeria, Sudan, maybe in southern part of India, maybe different parts of India, having a different culture, different food, different learning styles. So one teacher is not sufficient to fulfill the and support the student. In that way, generic AI algorithms, chat GPTs, what we were talking was really a kind of amazing solution. It's a kind of great solutions to the students. Second biggest problem, one fit for the solution was there. And second problem is what 19th century pedagogy, 20th century teachers, and 21st century learners. So there are the big gap in this three, so that kind of gap can be fulfilled with this kind of a personalized solution, personalized learning solution that generative AI could do, ChatGPT could do. Why don't you think and decide a kind of pedagogy? How many of you have learned the manual to operate your Apple phone? How many of you have learned read the manual to operate your Android phone? And I believe that your kids are operating it very well. So G generation student, we baby boomers could not help them, right? But this kind of algorithms, this kind of generic AI tools can help them. And so that when personalized learning came into the existence, this chat GPT came, everybody is talking about. Yesterday I was listening about Gemini. It could take the input as MP3, it could take input as a video file, it could take input as an image file, and not only the text. So many things are there which can be learned by the students very easily, very effectively. But again, there are the challenges that how I will assess the assignment and all. So it is always there. The biggest challenge with the higher education is again the assessment. And poorest thing was the assessment methodologies and all. So summing up, if we go for the personalized solutions, personalized learning solutions to the student, that anyway is there. And if we want to propel India to the 10 billion economy, 10 trillion economy, this is the right time to teach the student to the skills required for the 21st century and 22nd century, right?
Sure.
That's
So,
my take on it.
great point. I think we're kind of slightly behind schedule. So, but I just want to hear one thing that from each of it. So, precisely just 5 seconds. We have the luxury of exactly half a minute. One thing that you would like changed to be changed in the higher education curricula, and you think Gen AI can help. That one thing.
Thank you. So I think the institutions should look at the blended learning, so that we currently we are looking at the alpha generation. They are all looking at the technology. The blended learning integrated with the generative AI will definitely enhance the learning abilities among students, which is inclusive, because we are addressing the disabilities using the generative AI. So I believe the blended learning for a campus education and online anyway, we have to leverage Gen AI. So this is what is I look at this
Blended
point.
learning. Great point, Dr. Nagasampike. Abhay, your turn.
Well, the one thing that needs to change is the way in which curriculums are built. I think more on that, Mr. Sanjay did speak about. If we can, institutions, if they can be open for platforms that could help faculty develop their curriculum, getting the best kinds of case studies to suit the scenario, local examples with the flavor of different languages, so that students, let's say a student from Andhra, can learn it in his language and then trace it or reproduce that in English. So the development of curriculum is one. Use platforms that could help faculty build it, number one. Number two, and also in the delivery, there are several kinds of learners. So their visual effect and the way in which every student learns is different. So if we can adopt models which deliver the curriculum in different fashion to different students outside the classroom, and then the faculty's relevance on the point, that is a burning desire to answer that question, we will be relevant, because prompting cannot happen automatically. In education, I feel that we will not let that happen, and we will be guides by the side, not the stage on the sage on the stage, who will be there to do the prompting, routing students to different learning paths.
Sure. So if I could very quickly hear from you and then from Sanjay. Yeah.
Me? Right.
Yes.
So I thought again I'll be the last, but okay. So one thing that everything has already been addressed by the panelists, and I just want to add the micro credentials, which is again missing. Now the corporates are asking that we don't need your BTech degree, your graduation degree and post graduation degree. If you have a skill, please come with us. So micro credentials and the skilling of the student toward that particular skill which is required in the industry is more important. So we should include micro credential in our curricula. That will help the students for getting their
Sure,
job.
that's
And
a great point.
right.
Absolutely. Sanjay, your take on this.
See, Gen AI is a production from the West. It is getting pre-trained from the West, and it is here to stay. I think the greatest danger is that if we do not train the engines with the Indian context and the Indian knowledge system, there's a risk that we will lose it all. My plea to all educators, because we have the number of people, is to start training, investing time into training the engine on the Indian knowledge system, on the Indian context of information. And if we do that, then the opinions created in the future through this engine would have a lot of relevance to our country. And I think this is one area where all us educators have to apply our mind and do it, because just like Google, this is here to stay and is going to become a reality tomorrow, which we will be fighting. So let's prepare for it now. That's my last statement.
So I think Kapil is itching to respond to this. So I hand this over to you. You have 20 seconds to respond, Kapil.
Thank you so much. So firstly, we are not here to replace teaching. Teaching continues. I think it's only going to augment. So that's one. But I really like the point that you made. I think it's important to put guardrails. It's important to put multiple checks and balances into place. I think what you need to understand, and to the point that you just made, right? So there is a base technology which is called the large language models, which is what companies like Google have built. What you input as input into these large language models is the output that will come. And the training that has to happen, and to what Sanjay mentioned, should be relevant to, say, an India context. And that's exactly what we are doing. So just some time back, we announced partnership with the ministry, where we're skilling, Ministry of IT, where we're skilling them. And I'm sure you will hear a lot about Bharat GPT, which is, again, hosted on Google Cloud, right? Where the inputs and the content that is being fed is Indianized and in the India context. And that is why it is important, and what you rightly said, it is important to ensure that it should be contextual so that it aids rather than looking as a competition. And we will continue to invest from an India standpoint. And like I said, we are the technology providers, we are the platform providers. We will continue to invest with faster processing, video, text, etc., etc. We will continue to do that, but it is up to the educators and the people who are building the content to give the right inputs in it and build the guardrails to ensure that the outputs that are coming help everybody. And just on the copying part of it, there are plagiarism checks which are available today, which you can easily use when a student turns in something which may not be original, right? So I'm saying multiple things are available. Happy to have the discussion offline as well. Thanks.
Yeah, so you've had to respond to it because he heard twice from Sanjay and he said, hey, I think ab to mujhe respond karna hi hai. Great. I think we're really going well behind schedule. I think we're about 7 to 8 minutes behind schedule. Great discussion. Thank you so much. We touched the surface as always. Panel discussions open up various views. More detailed discussions offline, one-to-one. All the panelists are around for a good time. So I think more offline discussions with them. Generative AI is definitely one of my favorite topics, and of course, inclusivity is also a favorite burning topic of mine personally. I work outside of my profession in the inclusivity space as well. So thank you so much to each of you, Dr. Nagasampige, Abhay, Mr. Pankaj Kumar Mishra, Sanjay Padore, Subhojit, and Kapil. Thank you so much for joining us, and more discussions offline. Thank you.